you're a woman and a Muslim, and you sound a lot more independent than I think of as a Muslim woman. Pardon me.
Some of the most independent women in history have been Muslim women. If you look at Khadija, the first wife of the Prophet, who died at one point and then he married others, she was 15 years his senior. She was a businesswoman. She had hired him to help her with his business. She liked him. She proposed marriage to him, and he said yes. Now,
Prophet Muhammad.
Yes, the Prophet Muhammad. And now we think that we're doing something great if somebody, you know, marries their senior. But, you know, and she was a very rich businesswoman. Look at Aisha, the woman the Prophet married later. She was involved in every aspect of the Muslim society, and she was a leader. And a lot of the hadith, the statements reported about the Prophet, come from her and from many other women. Khawla bint al-Azwar was a fighter. There are a lot of images, strong images of Muslim women that no one talks about.
How do you feel about women today in Islam? Do you think that they are being treated well or have a fair position?
Well, I have a feeling that with the closing, you know, my view is that with the closing of the door of ijtihad, when it became too costly, you know, people lost their lives for engaging in ijtihad and so on, and patriarchy became more and more entrenched in the Muslim societies, not only vis-a-vis women, but even vis-a-vis the concept of democracy in society, where democracy was on the ebb and dictatorial centralized powers were rising. When all that happened, I mean, women suffer in such an atmosphere more than any other individual in society. And the problem, though, here's where the problem arose. As Islam spread all over, as I said, fewer and fewer people, including, for example, Muslim Americans, can read the Quran itself. They rely on translations or commentaries. And these always reflect, there's no such thing as objectivity. They reflect the view of the commentator or the translator, even unconsciously. So then you get certain patriarchal views, certain translations, etc. And now you're being told, this is what God wants for you. And if you're a religious woman, you don't want to go against God. That's a whole big thing. You're religious. That's your God. And if God says do this, I'll do it happily too.
Except it comes through a translation.
A translator and a whole system of patriarchy and a lot of cultural effects. And if you look now at Islam and you compare the understanding of Islam in Pakistan versus Morocco versus Iran versus Lebanon, they're all different.
I've heard that the current education rate for women in Pakistan is something like 3%.
I don't know if that figure is correct. I have no idea. But I can tell you another thing that you can balance with what you heard. The Prophet said that you must educate your children, male and female. There is absolutely no difference in Islam. Both must be educated. So if women are not being educated in favor of male, then the analysis must come from a system which is not Islamic, but from extra elements external to Islam, cultural perhaps, that are influencing the decisions of people in those countries. And very often they don't tell you this is extra religious, because then it doesn't have the same weight. It wouldn't carry it. So what they would do, they will find a religious support for it, some kind of an explanation to say, but this is really Islam and you have to follow it. And that's where we now need what I call new jurisprudence for a new world. We need a lot of Muslim men and women.
You teach law.
Yes, I teach law and I teach Islamic jurisprudence, and I'm now involved in a project that I hope to, through it, to present that new jurisprudence. I want to go back to the roots of Islam, to the life of the Prophet, to the Hadith, and find out what are the women's rights under those conditions. Even men, Muslim men nowadays, are writing books saying, why are our women kept in this state? They have a lot of rights that Islam has given them, and somehow they have been taken away. So even the men are unhappy about the situation. Not all the men, but some of them, and very important scholars at that. So this is a very exciting period in the history of Islam, and in particular in the history of American Islam. Because of all the Islam around the world, all the countries that are Muslims, this is the only country where we can actually go back to the real ijtihad without having my arm twisted or taken out of its socket or tortured because the ruler does not like what I have to say. So I can really think about things, be my own conscientious scholar, and put ideas out that I think are truly Islamic, and then get responses from the other Muslims in this country and other countries about that point of view.